The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Creating a culture of love.
What you focus on, you create more of.
What can we do to start challenging that? Why is it thought that it's bad?
It's like any other muscle. Consciousness and mindset, motivation, and all that stuff is just another muscle. And I always compare it to going to the physical gym. You've got to go to the spiritual gym.
So is that like, sometimes I wake up, I try to consciously take that smile. Before I even open my eyes, I'm just smiling. I got another day. And then it's following it up with, today I'm going to make money.
The same things I'd been doing over and over that didn't work, like I'd try and get more freelance jobs, or I'd come up with a new business idea and then, give it up when it got too hard, or, whatever my deal was.
Jen Sincero, thank you so much for joining us on Live Through Love today. And you've got a huge milestone coming up, right? It's the 10-year anniversary of You Are a Badass. It's a limited edition hardcover book. It's sparkly. It's awesome. And I do want to add that the first book I ever bought on Audible was You Are a Badass.
I didn't know that. That is so... I'm honored. That's amazing.
Yeah, I had to go back and then I re-listened to it, and it's just funny, right? It's just cool to see. We met over at Summit of the Greatness, and then I checked that. I'm like, you were my first book. You're the first one I listened to, and I've been devouring, self-help book and biographies ever since.
Well, thank you. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to dive right in with this question.
That's right.
Why is it so crucial to believe in and vocalize our deservingness to earn the money that we truly desire?
Because as with anything, if you don't embrace it and have a high frequency and a good attitude about it, you're in resistance, and what you focus on, you create more of. So when you're in fear, when you think rich people suck and are evil, when you think money's really hard to make and you're going to have to do a lot of stuff you hate doing to make it, that you don't deserve it, whatever your trip is, when you're focused on that, you're going to pull more of that into your reality, and you're going to attract more of that. And when you can unhook from those beliefs that are not helping you and stay in that feeling of gratitude and abundance and excitement and eager expectation, then you attract more of that.
No, for sure. And we're going to unpack that a little bit. But why is there such taboo around money, right? When I grew up, you can't ask people, what they make or what they do, just like you shouldn't ask a lady her age, right? And
Right.
what can we do to start challenging that? Why is it thought that it's bad?
Talking about it. I've thought about that a lot because it is so bad. I mean, I've written about sex, I've written about religion, and I've written about money. And money is by far the most loaded. It's the dirtiest of them all.
That's interesting, because if you were to ask people the difference between the three, I bet they'd rank money first, maybe religion, and then sex. Or sex and religion would probably flip-flop, but you wouldn't think that money's at the bottom.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? But I mean, think, as you said, it's so gauche to talk about it. And if you admit you want it, I always compare it to dieting. Like, if you go out and tell people you're going to lose 20 pounds and you're going to start working out, they're like, go you. But if you're like, I'm going to get rich this year, they look at you sideways, because we automatically equate the desire for money with greed and the fact that you're going to compromise your morals in order to make it. We just go straight there. And I don't know why. But I do know that it is deeply, deeply ingrained in all of us. Even, with all the wealth consciousness work I've done, I'm still working on it. Like, none of us, we're still living in that society, and we're still bombarded with the fear and loathing of the unholy dollar.
Yeah, and it might be just stories in history, right? Look at the old kings and pharaohs and moving on to now. And it's interesting to think about, why is money thought of as such an evil thing? I even remember in my 20s, the way I thought about making money in my 20s versus making money now, it's like, I'm going to kick, claw, scream, get my way to the top. It doesn't matter who, gets injured on the way up, but also, why do you want to be up there by yourself?
Yeah,
You want to be there with your friends.
exactly.
So that didn't make
Right.
sense.
And you want to feel good about the money you made and not, tainted. Like if you do something horrible to make money, it's not, you don't feel good.
No,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. Like I hear people all the time, in these past couple years of pandemics and BLM and fires and Ukraine and just all this stuff going on, people are so quick to say, you know what? Well, Elon Musk didn't donate enough. Jeff Bezos didn't donate enough. Like they start pointing at the rich. And we live in a country or an opportunity to get as wealthy as we want to get. Like,
Right.
how do we shift that? Because in my head, like, one day when I'm that wealthy, does it mean I'm going to be like this terrible taboo person,
Right.
or then why do we start thinking, well, you don't give enough, or this person can end world hunger, so why don't they just do it?
Right. Right. Well, it's like any other thought with anything. It's the awareness that that's how you're thinking. Really starting from that very foundational spot of, especially if you're having trouble making money, or if you're coiled up in these hating other people and all this stuff, catching yourself in the moment of the thought and being like, is there a better way for me to think about this? Because we have control over our thoughts. That is the greatest gift we've been given, is
Yeah.
the ability to control our thoughts, but we can't really control what we're not aware of. So becoming aware of, well, is that true? Should he be doing that? Am I, why is that true? Or, what would I do if I had a lot of money? What would make me feel right? And I think just that's where all of our power lies, is in that choice, in the awareness of what we're thinking, and in the choice to focus on what we choose to focus on.
So instead of, pointing that finger, right? It's too easy to point the finger. Actually start asking the question, what is my perception? How am I judging and framing this? And then looking at the questions or the statements we're making and actually analyzing it. Hey, if I'm
Exactly.
doing,
And yeah, and also not being the personality police and being like, he should be doing blah, blah, blah. It's none of your business. Go
yeah,
out and get rich if you feel so important. If you think it's so important, look at yourself and be like, okay, if he did it, I can do it. He's just another human being. And then if it's that important to you and keeping you up at night, then you go do it.
yeah, let's take personal responsibility and become that person.
Thank you. Yes.
So, and the economy, right? Right now, we're looking at inflation. We're looking at who knows what's happening with the stock market. We're looking at the cost of life in general across everything getting more expensive, but our income not so much aligning with the expenses of life. What are some stuff that we can start doing to start reframing our conversations toward abundance, right? In many cases, I am statements are some of those most powerful conversations we have with ourselves. And it's really easy to run around and say, I'm fat, I'm broke, I'm poor, I'm not good enough.
Right.
But what can we start doing to really start reframing that? Because that's coming from a sense of fear and scarcity.
Sure.
And maybe putting it into an empowering state of abundance and love to practice every single day to start, that money mindset, that muscle.
Yeah, well, it's like any other muscle. Consciousness and mindset and motivation and all that stuff is just another muscle. And I always compare it to going to the physical gym. You've got to go to the spiritual gym. And so you don't get to go to the gym and work out and get into shape and then be like, I'm in shape. I don't got to go to the gym anymore. Right. So
Yeah.
same thing with mindset. And let's just talk about wealth consciousness and a money mindset. So if you are in fear about inflation and you're in fear about the cost of living going up so much, and that's what you're focused on the fear. So that's what you're going to pull into your radar more, right? So, and I'm not saying these things aren't happening. It's not about being in denial about them happening, but you acknowledge it and you're like, all right, so what can I focus on and what can I think about that's going to put me in the frequency of what I want to manifest? And so first of all, with this spiritual gym thing, get your act together, get a spiritual gym practice together in the scope of wealth consciousness. So be reading books about money, about wealth consciousness, be listening to podcasts like this, be hanging out with people who have a really excellent the mindset around money. That is so key, you guys. Like when you're hanging out with your broke friends, bitching and moaning about how hard everything is and how scary this inflation is, that seeps into your fiber, right? So
Yeah.
knock it off. What you focus on, you create more of. So hang out with people who, instead of bitch and moan about what is, come up with new ideas and excitement about what they could create. So really surround yourself with those kinds of people. Listen to music that pumps you up. Take this spiritual gym workout really, really seriously, especially if you have a history of being bad with money. Because in my life, that was the number one thing that I had to do. And listen, just even admitting that you want to become wealth conscious, that you want to focus on making money, that right there is ginormous, because of what we were talking about when we started out talking. That's a big fat no-no.
Yeah. So is that like, sometimes I wake up, I try to consciously take that smile before I even open my eyes. I'm just smiling. I got another day. And then it's following it up with, today I'm going to make money.
Oh, I love it. I love
Something
it.
so simple. And it's also, it comes back to, what's your mission, right? What's your purpose? What are you trying to do with that money?
Yes.
I'm painting the world with love. I'm trying to inspire the world to operate from that place of love, and it takes money. So obviously, it's not a place of evil or negativity or judgment unless we make it so.
Yes, and it's so good to keep questioning that, because a desire for wealth is not the same as greed. And I think that's such an important difference to focus on. Greed comes from lack. Greed is that feeling that you're never full, so you have to have everything, or that it's going to go away, so you have to, white knuckle it. When you're in an abundant mindset, there's plenty to go around. You're in the flow. It's all about love and ease and joy and freedom and options and all that stuff. So it's a very, very different energy.
No, totally. And what are some good questions to ask ourselves? Like, what is my mindset? Am I in abundance? Or am I in scarcity? So we can start actually diagnosing ourselves, let's say.
Yeah. So I put an exercise, I put it in You Are a Badass and You're a Badass at Making Money, because it was such a humdinger for me. And it is writing a letter to money as if it's a person. And so, you write, "Dear money, I love you. I wish I had more of you, but I actually don't trust you, because I'm afraid that if I hang out with you, people will hate me, and also that you'll go away, and I don't know what to do with you if I make you, and I feel like a dirty whore for even admitting I like you." And so all, and write it, all the good, bad, and ugly. Just write it as much as you can get out of you, and then go back. This is why journaling is so great, because it's staring back at you on the page. Thinking is great, but you can't often remember everything you think. But when you write it down, so write that letter to money, and then circle the ones that get you the most worked up, the negative beliefs, and then go to town on that and just really question them and think about how you want to feel. So I'll just tell a quick story about when I did that. And, my big things were that I'm going to have to do stuff I hate to make money, that I suck at it, that it's going to be really, really hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm an idiot. Blah. I have a lifetime of proof, that I suck at it. All that stuff. And so I realized that, like, hard and trapped, I felt really trapped. Those were sort of the big things, that it was going to be really hard, and that I was trapped in this old pattern and I was never going to break out. So when I felt those things, and I was really working on my wealth consciousness, I was like, so how do I want to feel with money? What's the opposite of those negative feelings? And it was flow and ease and freedom, like just freedom from all that, and easiness, being in the flow. So then my mantra became, money flows to me easily and freely. And so when you do that flip, I was living in a garage in an alley, driving a car with no grill. Like, I had no money at the time that I started doing this work, and saying money flows to me easily and freely. I was like, really, Jen Sincero? But it wasn't about believing it at first. So this is so important with the mantra thing. You don't have to believe it. You have to feel it. So when I said money flows to me easily and freely, just saying those words, flows and ease and freedom, that I could party with, that I could feel. And so it's all about feeling with the mantra thing. And so you want to catch yourself when you read back that letter to money on the feelings that are the ones that are the most intense for you, and then work with those words and those feelings and flip it around.
Wow, that's interesting because the thoughts are one thing, but the feelings, like if you start getting all goosebumpy and sweaty
Yes.
and stomach aches, that's what we worry about. And that's what we should really look into, because we could reframe our thoughts,
Right.
but we could lie, our feelings won't lie back if it's not.
Exactly. It's all about feelings, because thoughts are just really words, but thoughts produce feeling if we're not faking it. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Now, is this a practice that you do once a year, monthly, daily?
You know what? I have not done it in forever, and I'm going to do it. I haven't done it in a long, because new level, new devil. I've got all
Yeah.
sorts of new things that have sprung up now that I'm making money. So, yeah, I don't do it that often, and I'm going to do it. So thank
Yeah,
you for
'cause
asking.
no, yeah. I've never written a letter like this. I've written
Yeah.
the self-love letters. That's a practice I tell people, hey, if you're having issues loving yourself, just get out a piece of paper. Don't even think about what it's going to look like. If it's, I love you, Ruben, and that's it for today, cool. If it's like a whole bunch of stuff, I'm like, no grammar, throw it out the window and do it for 30 days. Like if you could do that for 30 days, so maybe writing this money letter for 30 days.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I've never done it, so I'm going to do that.
Good,
Thank
me
you.
too.
So before becoming a true badass, right? That is who you are now. What was your initial relationship with money? And you kind of just touched on it, but what specific steps did you take to revolutionize your financial habits and perspectives, right? One thing was this letter, and I've heard you speak before. You're like, I was a rock and roller, I was this artist and I was this free spirit, but like, what was that bottom moment that said, hey, I'm putting a pin in the sand. Like, this is what I have to do because broke doesn't work for me.
It's interesting. I feel like okay, so I'm going to compare it to an aha moment, because when you have an aha moment, it's stuff you've heard a gazillion times already, right? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, don't worry, be happy. Right?
Yeah, you're
You
like,
just get it. Right? But you've heard it a gazillion times. So it was kind of like that. And I think it really is this way for most people, where it's not some catastrophic moment or some lightning bolt moment where you just suddenly wake up. And I remember, I bitched and moaned about being poor my whole life, but I also bitched and moaned about how much rich people sucked and how I was an artist. And, that's what's important to me. I'm not going to sell out, whatever that means.
yeah.
Really, what the hell does that mean? Anyway, so that's sort of where my mindset was, and my whole identity. So this is a big thing. Our identities are really wrapped up in our wealth consciousness. So this is a big thing. Like, I had to stop being who I was. I was very committed to who I was. And so I got to the point where it wasn't worth it to be that cool rock and roller, I don't care, free spirit, and admit that I wanted to focus on making money. That was an enormous moment for me. And it really got to the point where I just got sick of it. Like, I had that aha moment where I was like, I'm going to wake up at 90 living in this garage if I don't get my poop in a scoop. And I just, and I remember having this feeling like, of course I wanted to make money, because you can't do stuff if you don't have money. Like, the very basic thing about being broke, it's terrifying and it's boring. You can't do stuff. So there was that, but there was also, even more motivating to me, was this feeling like, I get to be me once on planet Earth, and I'm going to spend it scraping by. That's so lame. Like, Jen Sincero, this is the best you can do? Really?
Right.
So that was the part of me that was just like, come on, girl. There's people out there who are killing it financially who are dumber than you are.
And that's a fact. And we should say things like that because it's true. We all have these gifts and these talents and our intelligence. And like, people that have less than what we have
Yeah.
have more than what we have, right? It's
Hello. Yes. I'm telling you, that works with my writing too. Like, people get these books on the bestseller list who cannot write their way out of a paper bag. I'm like, seriously? Like, I get motivated by mediocrity more than inspired by greatness.
Yeah, no, totally. And
Yeah.
to add to that, like the fact that your book has been on that bestseller list for so long, and I know it didn't start out hot, right? But it caught steam, and that goes into that long game. Like you could tell you put your heart and soul into this, and you can tell that everything you talk about, you're actually walking the talk and doing it every single day. And the proof is in the longevity of your book and your message and your practice. And I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's very important to know that, because it's true. The new hottest podcast pops up all of a sudden, it's on the maps and then it disappears. Same with books, same with other practices or mindsets or whatever. But if it's tried and true and it's working, you know, we can all be badasses too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very exciting. I mean, I never thought when I wrote it 10 years ago that we'd be having a 10-year anniversary celebration and a new printing of it. And I mean, it's just, and it's all my readers. I mean, it was a total word of mouth thing. So thank you.
Yes, no, thank you to everyone. That's the important thing that we need to figure out. So you shifted from this, you started owning it, you started realizing like, yo, I have these gifts, I have this power. Why am I playing, I guess, small or
Yeah.
or
Tiny.
believing in your limiting beliefs, right?
Yes, totally. Yes.
And we create these. We create these stories from whatever reason, something in childhood, something, you know, in our teens, in our 20s, in our 30s. Like, there's no lack of opportunity to create a new limiting belief.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's plenty around. You don't have to look hard.
Right? Or realizing we actually never hit the finish line. Like, I think, you know, an example is like the finish line is when we're dead and we don't know what's going to happen, when that day is going to be, or what's going to happen after that. But why do we strive to think like we just hit it? Now I'm financially abundant, but are you really? Like it's you were saying, it's a mindset, it's a practice. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So shifting into this, like what differentiates the mere desire to change one's life from a decision to truly make that change happen?
It's the decision brings with it the availability to do whatever it takes. And to, you know, so it's like I wanted to make money, but I wasn't available to read all the self-help books or to go to the cheesy money-making seminars or, you know, to admit that I wanted money or to do all the things, you know, I would go to a certain point, and which was quite frankly the same things I'd been doing over and over that didn't work, you know, like I'd try and get more freelance jobs, or I'd come up with a new business idea and then, you know, give it up when it got too hard, or, you know, whatever my deal was. You know, the decision, you will find yourself doing stuff that scares the living crap out of you on a regular basis. That is the difference between wanting and deciding.
Yeah.
It really, truly is. Because what happened to me, I started reading the self-help books, and then I started going to these seminars, and, you know, this was, I don't even know, like 15 years ago. And life coaching back then was even more mysterious than it is today. Like, nobody had me. Like, who are these snake oil salespeople, right? Everybody was charging all this money. And but I went to one of these seminars, and there was a coach on the stage, and she was selling her stuff, but she spoke right. She was all about wealth consciousness and helping women specifically. And man, I felt like she was reading my mail, and I knew I needed to work with her. Like, I was just like, oh, I know she can help me. And her fee was literally 1/3 of my annual income at the time. I mean, I was making $0, but still it was a third. And instead of, you know, backing down in my long list of excellent reasons why I couldn't pay that, instead of that, I was like, how am I going to find this money? I've got to find this money. And I found, you know, I put it on a credit card, and I went into debt, and then I ended up making that money back in less than 3 months.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. That's just that moment between wanting and making the decision, because You know, if we listen to some of our friends or just look back in history of things that we were in, how many times did we want something, right? It's like hoping and wishing. There's a big difference. We can hope and wish. It's a beautiful thing. It, you know, gives us warm and fuzzies. But if you don't take action, you're going to sit hoping and wishing in the corner for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know, it's like, let me hope for change, but you've got to create the change that you want to hope for or that you're hoping for. So
Exactly.
taking action.
And it really is that kind of action that is the combination of terror and excitement. So it's got to have both of those things, because the excitement means you're on the right path, right? Like I was so excited to work with her. Like everything she was saying spoke to me. And I was terrified because it was so expensive. And
Yeah.
that's when you know you're on the right track. Like if it doesn't scare you, you're doing something wrong if you want to change your life, because it means you're still in your comfort zone. So you
Yeah.
got to get into the unfamiliar places, because you got to where you are by doing what you're doing. So it has to be unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar scares the hell out of the human creature.
Oh, it does. We love being comfortable. We don't want to ruffle our
know.
feathers. It's like, ooh, it's cozy here. Let me not
Right?
scare myself.
Uh-huh.
But there's two things with that, right? Not only did you make that decision and you're like, oh my God, this is everything I have and I've got to do it. You made the decision that you have to take action. It's no longer wanting. But in many cases, some of us can actually get there to that point and write the check and still not follow through. So what's that next
yeah.
step? What's that next step after like writing the check?
You know, let me think about this. I was hell bent. I really had made the decision before I even paid her. Excepting, I have to confess, when I paid her, I called her up like 5 minutes later. I was like, "You've got to give me that money back. I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry." And she
Buyer's
was like
remorse.
a great coach. She's like, "I am telling you, it might be the most important money you've ever spent. And I'm going to hold your hand through this. I also don't give refunds, but there's a reason I don't." And so she's like, you've got to keep going. And thank God for her. And, you know, it didn't stop there. I did every single terrifying thing she told me to do. And I started an online, I was coaching writers, because I was already a writer. I'd written 2 books before Badass. And so I started coaching writers on writing their nonfiction book proposals, which at the time, like I was, a punk rocker. I was super cool. I was like, really? I'm going to be the book proposal lady? Like, and she said the greatest thing to me. She's like, "Well, would you rather be broke and cool or rich and poor?" Oh, no, broke and cool or rich and cheesy. That was it. Because I thought online marketing was so cheesy. And I was like, oh, okay, rich and cheesy. And then she made me double my prices every single time I held this online course that I was doing, which made me want to puke. And I did it. And because it was all about my wealth consciousness and all about my feelings of being greedy or a bad person or not worth it or not knowing what the hell I was doing. Everything came up with all of it. And we just kept meeting it head on and kept taking the scary action into the unknown. And man, it transformed my whole life. Yeah.
Yeah, there's two things that I'm hearing there too, because some of us have a lot of fear of writing that check to the coach, the personal trainer, whoever, whatever you want to call this person that, helps us see what's in the gap, right? Some of us know we're here at the bottom and we know we want to get here to the top floor, but we don't know how to get through the gap. And this person can actually walk us through and help us close the gap. It's really us doing it, but they shine the light on where it is that we're moving with that. So you have that opportunity, but then you had the identity conversation too, though. So you were this cool, free-spirited artist rocker, and then you thought, well, then maybe I'm this cheesy rich person. But couldn't you be this cool, free-spirited rocker, rich book proposal person all at the same time? So how much of your identity did need to shift?
Yeah. Well, excellent question. So at the beginning, because online marketing has a very, like, nerds are studying everything, like down to whether a capital T converts better than a lowercase t in your copy, right? They've studied everything. So her point was like, do it the way it's done so you can make some, have you always dreamed of writing a book? Do you not know where to start? Like asking questions like that, which I was just like, oh my God, but it's like, it works. hit people's pain points, like relate to them. Like,
Yeah.
so that was more the kind of stuff. And so you just got to get started. And I had, my little banner with me in my little cheesy business suit. Like I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I couldn't wear, my leather tank top or whatever I was wearing on stage. So I had to, and then, so you start, the pendulum swingeth, right? I went from, punk rock to cheesy online salesperson. And then I started writing my newsletters more in my voice, and I started just really becoming my new identity, which was me, but it was a different me, but it was still me. So, and that's how You Are a Badass happened, is because I took a genre that was generally considered cheesy and woo-woo and, whatever, which is how I felt about it, even though those books totally changed my life. I don't want to slam them. I'm so grateful to everybody who ever wrote one that helped me. But I remember when I was reading them, I was like, these books are so helpful and this information is so great. How come none of them are funny? How come none of them have curse words? How come, And then I was like, I could write the hell out of a self-help book. And so, but I never probably would have gotten to that point if I hadn't started with this online marketing thing and saw how to take that genre and put it in my own voice. So, I talk about this a lot in my talks these days, is about, don't worry about the final product. You've never done what you're about to do before, so you don't know how to do it. Just get in the game and get it working, and then iron it out and fine tune it. But you can't fine tune it with the first step. Like those stepping stones, everything is a stepping stone. So just get in the game, take the first scary step, and then figure it out. Nothing lasts forever. Everything changes. So you get to figure it out as you go along.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing in that, there's still freedom in it, right? And you took the action, you took the change, you thought you would end up here, and the truth is, you became who you always were, but with the new mindset, and you put you all into it. So if we all start applying that, we don't have to become these people that we judge that are rich. We could still be us, but just be rich and wealthy, and whatever you want to define that in.
Right. And I honestly, when I started out on that journey, I was like, we need the good, big-hearted people of Earth to be filthy rich.
Yes.
Because that's, and it's kind of like the news. Like, they don't really print a lot of good news,
No.
There's equal amounts. Who knows what the ratio is, but I am sure there is at least, if not more, good news out there as there is bad news. But we only print the bad news because that's what sells, right?
I know.
So we only look at what the greedy people are doing with money. We don't really focus that much on what the great, big-hearted people are doing with their money. So it isn't true that that's how people act when they get rich. But so let's let all the good people start getting rich, because money is power. That it really truly is. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do with it that can really make big, big, important change.
Yeah, no, and that's a fact. And the minute we start thinking and believing that, it's going to happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just let's imagine Mother Teresa with all the money in the world, or Gandhi with all the money in the world. Imagine the difference that would have. Look at what they did with nothing, because they were in such an abundance. Their wealth came from being in service, from showing like the greatest loving force of humanity. So they received a lot in that capacity. But imagine having the financial wealth that goes with that and being that person. Ooh.
Right. Marianne Williamson had a great quote, and she wrote a book on money mindset. I wish I could remember what it was called. But it went something like, when you think of the fact that money is a tool that causes change, then not only is it your right to make money, it's your damn duty to get rich. It's like, okay,
yes,
that's one way. Like, it's my duty. If I really want to make great change in the world, I got to get over my stuff, because it's not just about me.
No, totally. That's a powerful quote.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think, like, let's look at the nonprofit space a little. Because I started one a few years ago where we did murals in schools and underserved communities and things like that. And I dug into that nonprofit space, that charitable space. And the thought in that space, because there's a lot of money taboo thoughts in it. Like, if you work for a nonprofit, you're not allowed to make a healthy salary. The The EDs aren't allowed to make CEO money. The people working for it should be scraping by. And I'm like, no, why is that even, how is that even a thing? Why can't people that work in these make just as much money as Fortune 500 companies that are doing good?
I so agree. Even the name nonprofit drives me nuts.
Right?
People are profiting. I mean, profit. It's some of the most profitable, most important things come out of nonprofits.
Yeah, and it's just that's a very clear, I think, mindset around money example that you can see. And I think there was someone a few years ago that was like a CEO or CMO for some nonprofit, and he was making a lot of money, and it made the news, and everyone started judging like that shouldn't be the case. And I think
know.
that really opened up that lens.
Yeah, good.
So let's shift a little bit into fear and self-confidence, right? You know, a lot of what I talk about, I try to simplify as much as possible. We operate from love or we operate from fear, you know? And earlier you brought up the news. And I feel like every time you turn on the TV, you've got this geyser of fear being shot at you. And you could barely, you're like trying to paddle water and stay afloat. And you're like, what do I listen to? The world is doom and gloom, right? How can we start like really trying to harness our dreams and our mindset and start pushing through all that noise? And like, what strategies can we employ to flip the same conversation we're having around money, but around the overall concept of fear, or that the world is against you and that we're victims, and that kind of mindset?
Well, first, again, pay attention to what you take in, what information you take in. And you got to stay informed. It's important, but we tend to, go into these wormholes of taking in all of this information. So figure out what you need to take in. This goes for everything with money, with the market, with, whatever you're feeling fearful about. Figure out what you're taking in, and is it really necessary? So that really, the awareness part is so, so key. And so just in day-to-day conversations, what are you talking about, and is it really necessary? Right? To focus on the stuff that's bolstering those fears. And it really, I just keep coming back to this. And I remember when I was starting out with all this work, I used to get just like, seriously, your thoughts, your beliefs, and words change your life. Like, it can't be that easy. But it is that easy. Like, of course, you have to take action, but what actions you take are completely based on your thoughts, beliefs, and words. So it starts there. So pay attention to that stuff, because that is forming your reality. And so, there's this whole thing about reality is what you can see, hear, taste, smell, and touch. But we also are connected to this divine universal intelligence. That's where intuition comes from. Where do thoughts come from? Where do great, awesome thoughts come from? Like, that's like the streamline of greatness is that connection. And so when I was living in the garage, driving around in the crappy car, that was my reality, right? That's what I could see, hear, smell, taste, touch. But in my heart, I was like, I know I'm greater than this. I know there's greater things for me out there. I couldn't see or, take it in with any of my senses, but I felt it. And that's why going back to this whole thing with how you feel is so critical. And so your thoughts, beliefs, and words do create a lot of your feelings. So it really is just about being incredibly determined in that department with your mindset.
No, it's really, so true.
Yeah. And and it's one thing to give it a lot of lip service, but it is every single day. And so this ring that I wear, I just got off tour, so I'm like preaching it all. And I'm like, what am I actually doing to do what I'm telling everybody else to do? And I was like, okay, I used to wear this ring that every time I looked at it, it would remind me to pause whatever I was doing and take a deep breath and just remember that I am universal intelligence. Just all throughout the day, because why are we not all so stuck up? If we really believe that, we're universal intelligence. We are the stuff that created all that is. That is like insane. So worrying about like the fact that inflation went up a couple points and I'm universal intelligence. Like, why be afraid of that?
No, yeah. And if we are that, and we're connected to this, and it's about listening to ourselves. But let's add a layer to that. The fact that it's basically impossible for you to be born you, for the genes, for the matter, for all the atoms, for everything to
Right?
come together and become you, plus what you just said. I mean, we're walking around in impossibility already. Why don't we own that?
Right? Totally. Totally. Yeah.
You know, and then think about where you were born into, who you were born to. Like, we could have been cockroaches. We could have been
Exactly.
weeds. We could have been like, if we look at everything, it's just a different combination of impossibility that made this reality. And I think when we look at that, it really humbles us to think how small we are, but how great we are in our opportunity to live.
Yes. I love that. So true.
So in the introduction to Badass, you talk a little bit about limitless possibility, right? You have this like 10-minute intro, and it's like you kind of basically tell us before you dive into the book, you need to X, 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 and this is what we're going to do. You know, we have friends or we have people that believe whatever our circumstances are our circumstances, and then we have people that literally believe in pure possibility, like anything is possible. If it's to be, it's up to me. That is part of the mindset of reframing all of this. But is there one key thing you've done to really say, hey, I am limitless and everything I am is what I say it is? Or do you just frame it that way and call it a day?
I go to the spiritual gym. I meditate every single day. I read the books in whatever sort of direction I'm working on. And I, because the constant working out of that muscle. And listen, I'm sure most people listening to this podcast know the drill, right? They know everything we're talking about.
Yeah.
As do we. But it's about that muscle. You need to be reminded. It's all about remembering. It really is just about remembering. So I have to remind myself like everybody else. And going to that spiritual gym is how I help myself remember.
Yeah.
Now my ring.
Just show up and you got your ring. So I like the physical prompt of something.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Because it's real easy to remember. And it's true. I always say people, there's a point in my life when I got really depressed. So in my 20s, I made a lot of money. I got into real estate. I was going to be a surgeon. And then my buddy said, come try out real estate. And I'm like $500,000 in debt, stressed out, potentially overweight and unhealthy and surgeon in 10 more years, or go try out real estate. I made $18,000 my first month in real estate. And I'm like, I think real estate. And then 19 and then 20 and then 30 and then 40 and then 50. We're talking about the heyday of before 2008.
Right.
Then 2008 hits and I lose everything.
Oh my God.
And my money story around that is not so much, I never grew up with a lack of things. I always wanted more because I believed in abundance and whatever I needed. I didn't lack anything in my childhood, but if I asked for something and my parents said no, go figure it out, I'd go figure out how to make money to get what else I wanted. And in this case, it was always more. But it was just about more because my other issues were, let's call it being insecure. Let's call it not feeling worthy. Let's call it not having belonging, and it really coming down to self-love. It's like money gave me purpose. As a 20-year-old in America, a male in Los Angeles, money is what got me the women and the accolades and the success. And that's how I found that fulfillment. But when I lost it all, I'm like, I'm still me with no money, none of the Escalades with 26-inch rims and diamond watches and houses and you name it. So like that was a rock bottom.
Wow.
That made me start shifting into this new way of being or new thought process. Then that led me into financial advising. So I went from real estate to finance. 5 years into finance, I found myself making money again, rookie of the year, leaders conference, like doing really well, but I was completely, totally, utterly depressed. I hated my life. I hated what I was doing. And then I judged myself for being depressed. I'm like, who am I to be depressed? Living in LA, single, making money again, rebuilt myself because now I was no longer needing money to show off my value. It was more like money is purpose and fulfillment. And what I'm doing right now is not fulfilling me. And I foresaw myself divorced. I didn't have a wife yet, or my kids resenting me because I went to work and I came home as an angry asshole because I hated work. But here's all the money I made you. But if I'm not present now, so that's that other side of money now.
Sure.
I'm making it for you. I'm sacrificing my life, my happiness, my everything to provide. What are some tools around that kind of a mindset? Because we also see people on the other side of the spectrum. We're making it, we're sacrificing everything to bring it home, but we are miserable.
It all comes from feeling again, being clear on what lights up your heart and soul. And listen, that kind of stuff, I'm not in such a bad mood about making that money the way you're doing it, as long as you've got something that does fulfill you. So if you become just a heat-seeking missile in that direction and you have nothing fulfilling you, because there are times when, I had this woman who was a poet at one of my last readings, and it's like she has to make money doing something she doesn't love so she can write her poetry until she gets to the point where she can start making it with the poetry. But she's, so it's okay. I don't feel like everything has to be at the top. Again, this is like a stepping stone, right? So, but when it consumes your whole life and you sort of get in that hamster wheel of just making more and piling it up and disregarding the part of yourself, your soul, really, and your heart and just what lights you up and what is authentically who you are, that's when you get into trouble. So it really is just so important to pay attention to how you feel all the time.
Yeah.
And keep checking in and keep checking in and keep checking in. I'm sure at the beginning you felt super excited and how fun and how, really, it's really exciting when you start making money again and you're in the flow and sort of like problem
I
solving.
dug myself out of that hole, that pit of bankruptcy, rebuilding my credit. At the same time, I went bankrupt and got a DUI. It's like, oh no, $10,000 bill on top of all this. Like, it was just like raining down. And then I built myself back up.
Yes.
But then I was like, I'm
then,
killing myself.
So there was a part of it that was good for a while. So that's great. And then, but that's why you got to keep checking in and keep checking in. You're like, this is starting to fall short a little bit. And then, just really catching ourselves because we can, again, it's our identity, right? So we get so caught up in this identity of who we are and how we operate and what lights us up. And it really is such an important step. And it doesn't need to take a long time. Like really, if you just check in half an hour every morning, be like, what? Just taking that time is so critical.
Yeah, no, totally. Because you got to remember your why. That's when I really found my why, right? In my 20s, why? I needed to make more. I needed to have the table at the club. I needed to have the nice watches. I needed, that was my why, which obviously was short-sighted, shallow. And I'm not going to judge myself because I needed that. And those lessons are something I learned from. And it's okay to not want nice things. Yeah.
And it was fun at the time.
It was a lot of fun. But now it's like, I just got back from Europe. I want to take my family to Europe. I want my 2-year-old to experience all these countries. That is the why now is more an experience versus stuff, Trust me, I still want a Lamborghini. I think the difference now is in my 20s, I wanted the Lamborghini to satisfy my ego, and swing it around like, hey, now it's like, I love cars. Like I am a car guy. I know everything about it. I love the history behind that high performance machine. And I want it for all the reasons that I love creating art. And that's a work of art. And my ego doesn't need it.
Exactly. Right. Yep.
So I think that's one of the differences there. So as we start winding down a little bit, let's talk a little bit about, the struggle with the self-confidence around self-doubt and self-love. You touch about that a little bit in your work. Where does love play a role in our mindset around money. And we're talking about like self-love, and also how do you define love?
Wow. I feel like love is acceptance of oneself, like especially self-love. We're all jerks. We all screw up. We all do magnificent things. We're all selfless. We're all selfish. Like it's all of it. And so love is accepting the whole beast as it is and feeling good about it and feeling good about yourself and just, having compassion for yourself when you fail and cheering yourself on when you do great and just accepting that and not expecting to be perfect and not expecting other people to be perfect. And I think when you get into that space, you are no longer focused on how much you suck and how hard it is for you to make money and how you don't deserve it, right? Because if we're talking about money and self-love, if you're just in that like, here I am with all my warts and all my shininess,
Yeah.
then there's sort of a lighter feeling to it. And this acceptance allows you to be in that flow and just be like, here we go. I'm going to roll with it. I'm in the flow. I'm going to go out there and be in abundance. And then I'm going to be focused on all the negative stuff, but then I'm going to focus back. And it's like just lightening the hell up, really.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. No, I love that. Love is acceptance. And part of that, right? Going back to that spiritual gym, we're never quote unquote fixed, right? The problems are going to always be there.
Yeah.
But by going to the gym, just like the physical gym, our cardiovascular improves, our heart health improves, our muscle strength improves. We can now, our mental flexibility, psychological flexibility, mindset. What I always tell people, because they'll ask me like, how'd you get out of your depression? Or how do you stay so positive? I'm like, trust me, I have my bad days. I want to sit on the couch. The thing is, I don't need to have bad months or bad years or bad weeks. It's maybe a day or two. Maybe it's an hour. And all of this is really going back to like, we get to just shift out of these problems quicker. They don't go away, which is why it's so important to have these conversations and continue going to that mental gym.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, in your words, how would you define being a badass? And what are the core attributes to being a true badass?
A badass is someone who gives themselves the permission, especially permission, because I got to say, when I became a coach, I was like, wow, my job is actually really just to give people permission to do what's in their hearts. So giving yourself the permission and the means to be, do, and have everything that lights up your heart. And I think a true badass is somebody who enjoys that journey and just really gets in there and, falls down and gets up and celebrates the journey.
No, I love that. And that's true. And it's interesting. You said permission. Why is it that we need permission, right? It's like we don't want to give it to ourselves. We're constantly seeking something from someone, but then we resist getting the help.
Yeah. The permission piece, because, when we arrive on planet Earth as little babies, like we don't have any of the shoulds and the self-loathing and the doubt. We just are so authentic. We are universal intelligence. We are our authentic selves. And then we learn that you're not supposed to be that weight or that color or that sexual orientation or want to do that or, whatever. So that's all stuff that we learn. And then we take that on as the truth. And then we spend the rest of our lives having these conversations trying to get back to where we were when we were babies. And so the permission piece gets swallowed up in that, where how can you possibly give yourself permission if it's not what you're supposed to be doing? It means you're wrong. So permission comes from tapping into your authenticity and being like, yeah, I'm not supposed to be rich. I'm not supposed to, because rich people are bad, and I'm not supposed to want to make a lot of money because that means I'm greedy and I have no morals or whatever. But giving yourself permission anyway, because it's in your heart, that's everything. And that's really where it stems from. And it all goes back to self-love. It all goes back to self-love. Yeah.
Love yourself first. Listen to your heart.
Yeah.
Just tap in and surrender to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes. I love that.
So, who are there? Is there any author or anyone out in this space that is motivating you?
Let me think. I've gotten for my meditation practice, I've been studying Joe Dispenza's work at the moment. I'm really liking some of the stuff he's doing. I love Marianne Williamson. I love all the old white dudes who wrote all the money books that totally changed my life. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles was my Bible forever. I've read that book a gazillion times.
I haven't read that one.
Oh my, it's really small, which I like. I'm really impatient. I'm like, just give it to me. Just say what you got to say.
Yeah.
And it's super cryptic. It's out there in outer space. I loved it. Oh my God. I just gobbled that up. It's a goodie. I highly recommend it. Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Who else? I haven't been doing so much reading of the self-helpery of late. I've been more in a meditative zone. So I don't know a lot about the contemporary people who are doing it right now, but I'm sure there's countless geniuses out there.
Yeah. And I think the beautiful thing is we all connect and vibe differently with different humans. So
Yes.
there isn't enough information because we're all different and different voices connect with different people. So find the people that inspire you and you connect with and make sense to the way you speak, act, and show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no lack of stuff out there. It's just you got to find your tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for aspiring authors or speakers that would love to, become the next you, so to speak?
I would say be as authentic as possible. Just write it in your voice, find your voice on stage, be yourself, and be vulnerable. Tell the stories that listen, I also believe in privacy and you don't have to share everything with everybody. But I think, whenever I'm writing or whenever I'm giving a talk, if there's something I'm sort of groaning about, like, oh my God, am I really going to admit that to the world? I'm like, yes, you are, because that's what makes you relatable, right? Like you can't be, so the embarrassing stuff is some of the best stuff that you can do. And just really, authenticity and vulnerability, I would say, are the two key things.
No, and being vulnerable is, a constant practice. I know,
Oh,
because I'm
gosh.
dealing with my being right and my perfectionism and what will people
Oh,
think
yeah.
of me. So I totally understand that, and I
Oh,
love, when you go up and talk, you are a firecracker, and that's why it lands. It's exactly who you are, and it's beautiful.
thank you.
Is there one life motto you live by every day? I think you may have said it earlier.
What did I say? I'd love to know. Um, well, right now it changes, right? Because you change what's important to you. And really back in the day, a lot of my motivation came from making money because I was in such a hole. And now that I've got that part, flowing nicely, my big thing now is before I do anything, I determine, is it going to be fun? Is it going to give me energy or deplete my energy? And does it have meaning? Those are the three things now that I really base everything in my personal and professional life on. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really, it's a good,
No.
for me, a great trio to sort of hinge everything on.
Yeah, no, and it's a great filter to live by, right? And pick the filters you
Yeah.
need for the time
Yeah.
of day.
Yeah.
And then is there any hope or inspiration that you'd like to leave with our listeners to help them continue on their
Yes.
personal growth journeys?
You know, you are not defined by your past, and every single moment is a new moment. The present moment is brand spanking new. So when you decide that you're going to change, you don't have to, regardless of what other people say. I mean, I don't know about you, but the older I get, I'm 58 now, and I just remember when I hit 50, it was like a gorilla crawled off my back. Like I suddenly, it was weird. I talked to a bunch of my friends and I was like, did you have this experience? And there's something about 50, and you don't have to wait till 50, you guys, but like The amount of a shit that I give about what other people think of me has decreased exponentially every year since I was 50. Believe me, I still have my stuff and I'm still, whatever. Yeah. But not caring about what other people think is the greatest freedom, because that's where you're getting all of that outside input that 90% of the time has nothing to do with what lights you up and with who you truly are. So that is a practice that I'm very excited to get good at, is just to really, my motto is think what you like. Think what you like. I don't need to convince you of anything. I don't need to prove anything to you. You stay in your lane. I'll stay in mine.
Yeah. No, and that's one heck of a superpower to lean into. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm getting like a B plus, I'd say.
That's good. That's higher than most, right?
Yeah,
I know, because sometimes I know that's crippling for me, especially you get hired on for a project, you get hired on to speak, you get hired on and you're like, I want to deliver so well for the person that put me in this situation. Yeah. That can start stifling us and actually take away for the reason they put us in the project or the speaking on purpose.
I remember a coach said to me once, she's like, when you get nervous before you get on stage, it's because you're making it about you and you're making it about being liked. When you get on stage and you think about being of service and like channeling what these people need to hear and how you can help them, then you're fine. So that's helped me a lot.
That's a mic drop moment for sure.
Yeah.
Because I have that same thing, and I had a coach tell me the same thing. Are you trying to embody being what you're speaking about, or are you worried about getting right and being liked?
Right.
And I'm just
right?
like, yeah, no, that's huge. That's powerful.
Yes, totally.
So final question, Jen. Thank you so much for everything so far.
Oh, my pleasure.
There is no right or wrong answer here.
Okay.
It might be similar to the question I asked earlier and how you may answer it, but how do you define living a life through love?
Living a life through love. I would say paying attention to how you feel in every moment as best as you can, and really making it important, making the most important thing that you feel good in every moment. Because when you're crappy to other people, when you're pushing and shoving to get yours, when you're needing to be right, it doesn't feel good. So it's not just about you feeling good. It's about spreading that love to everybody. And so if you pay attention to feeling good, you're going to stay on the right track.
Thank you. It's beautiful. No one's ever answered it like that at all. So I always get to ask the question and get a whole new meaning to it. And that's the purpose of living through love. You know, I show it one way, you show it your way. Everyone's showing this opportunity, but it's always about leaning into that power of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 10 years of You Are a Badass. It's an amazing accomplishment. I want to acknowledge you for that, and congratulations on I mean, that's a feat, and that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. I'm still amazed.
And finally, where can everybody find you?
JenSincero.com. Jen, and then Sincero is like the word sincere with an O on the end. You can go to yourabadass.com, Jen Sincero on Instagram, Facebook, all the things. That's where you can find me. And
amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise. This was such a joy. It's such a joy to talk to you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.